went to Paris looking for answers to questions that bothered him so. He was impressive, young and aggressive, saving the world on his own. But the warm summer breezes, French wines and cheeses, put his ambition at bay. Summers and winters, scattered like splinters, and 4 or 5 years slipped away. Then he went to England, played the piano. He went to Paris, a beautiful Jimmy Buffett tune. Now, this first appeared on his 1973 album, A White Sport Coat and a Pink Crustacean. And later on was a song he played live a few times, but it also showed up on his greatest hit album, Songs You Know by Heart. The song has a really interesting beginning. I mean, it was a true life story of him meeting a Spanish Civil War vet named Eddie Balchowsky, and him just telling him the story of his life. And especially sounds like he took a little hankering to Jimmy and told him how life had gone for him. Things were a little tough, obviously, but he was an old man by the time he was telling the story. Jimmy met him in Chicago when he was playing there one time, and it's turned into a really well-known song of his, partly because it was covered by a few big stars, Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, and quite a few others. But it's a very simple song, and in this lesson we're going to look at just keeping a very simple finger-picking accompaniment going and singing. It's in the key of A. We have 3 chords, A, D, and E, 1, 4, and 5 in the key of A. So that's all we need. There's a little interlude that uses a couple of bar chords. You could leave that out if you can't play bar chords. You could also even just strum the song if you just like the song and want to sing it. But the thing we're going to do in the finger picking is talk about, and as a matter of fact, the tablature I have is not very specific. I only have 2 lines. The introduction, because what we're going to do in the introduction is just learn to mess around with keeping a pattern going and improvising a little bit of movement with a couple of notes that you can add to an A chord. And then in the verse, we're going to be using a pattern, but you can change this any way you want. A pattern that has what I call a double bass at the beginning, meaning a bass note on beat 1 and a bass note on the and of 1. So the bass notes are not 4 alternating notes in a measure. On the first beat of the measure we've got a bass, and on the first and of the measure we have a bass. So it's more of an arpeggio for the first half of the measure, and then alternating bass for the second half of the measure. So I really like to use this pattern. I almost hate to even call it a pattern, because you're going to really change what notes you play and where you even play notes every time you work on it. So but it's half an arpeggio, half an alternating pattern. And when I refer to an alternating pattern, it means that your thumb is keeping up steady bass notes. So that's happening again for the second half of this measure. And then you're just going to change a few chords. Just got to figure out how to do it on D and how to do it on E. It's pretty simple. So this is a really good basic finger-picking song. And if you leave out the bar chords, this is a song, an absolute great beginning finger-picking song. So let's take a look at some of the chords, what happens with the picking, and then work our way through the song a little bit. A really quick look at the left hand. What we're going to be doing is playing an A chord with my favorite fingering, first finger on the 3rd string, second finger on the 4th string, and 3rd finger on the 2nd string. And what this does is it gives you the most freedom to add the note D, which we're going to be adding in, giving us a suspended 4 sound. We'll be doing some hammer-ons and pull-offs to D and from D back to C sharp. The right hand, I'm playing an A chord now with my left hand. We're going to have just 2 different patterns. I even hate to call these 2 different patterns. Sometimes we're going to be having an alternating pattern where you're just keeping your thumb going back and forth, and you can really then play your fingers any place you want. You could put fingers in. Now your first 3 fingers are going to be playing the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st strings. Okay, so grab the attachments. They're very simple ones. One chart that just has the chords at the top and the words at the bottom, and 2 lines of tablature. Again, I'm not spelling out this whole song for you, just getting you started. And in the tab, we'll walk exactly through the introduction. This is not necessarily exactly the way it went on the album, although it's pretty close, but it really just shows the idea. What we're going to try to do here is keep our A chord with steady alternating bass and just mess around with a couple of notes to add some different flavors to the song. So what we're going to do in the first measure is just a steady alternating, no pinches in there. And the chord's really A suspended 4, which is done by adding the D on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. So that measure would just be this. That is a perfect example of something you can do anytime. You could play those notes in any order, the fingers in any order, as long as the bass is consistent. This is one of the main things in finger picking. You want to be able to change the order of your fingers randomly or just on a whim as to when you're playing the song on any given day.